Hello, this video is kind of a continuation of my previous video that I made about this brushless gimbal that I got from GearBest. Thank you, GearBest. And in my last video, all I did was turn it on and try it out without changing any of the settings whatsoever. But in this video, I wanted to have a look at some of the settings that I've played around with. And I haven't really gone into many of them. I've just done some very, very basic stuff. But I thought it still might be interesting to people who are perhaps considering getting one of these gimbals. So at the current state, this is my new test frame, by the way. I just put this together from that old hexacopter that I had before. It just makes it a little bit easier to get everything underneath the camera so I can show you the whole thing. The other piece of wood that I had it stuck to was too long to do that with. Whoops. So it's just a 2200 battery stuck on there, and there's a run cam underneath that, so we can do a side-by-side comparison like in the last video. And I just have a little switch for convenience here to turn the gimbal on and off, and it is on at the moment, as you can see. And the only setting I've changed at this point is I have turned the second IMU on, so that lets us do cool things like this. Now, I don't know if you remember from the previous video, but when we got to about the 50-degree mark here, we couldn't go any further because it started shaking. But now we can go all the way back like that to, we're almost, what is that, 135 degrees I guess away from normal. So what that means is if you wanted to mount this on the front of your quadcopter, as some mountings are done, that's the only setting you would need to make, and it's ready to go. So what I mean is that your quadcopter would be here. Oops, did I just turn it off? Did I just pump the switch? Okay, I figured that out. It just happened that the battery that I was using to power it with died at the worst possible time, right in the middle of a video. So I've just stuck another battery on, and I think we're good to go now. Now, as I was saying, it should be fine to run this like that on the front of your quadcopter. So the TBS Discovery style frames would be kind of a good fit for this, I think. So that would work just fine. Now, there are a few other things that I wanted to do, of course, but just before I open up the settings program, I thought we could have a look at what happens when you use the RC control inputs that are given on here without making any further changes in the configuration app. So that's these 5 pins along here. We have a ground at the back, and then we've got some other pins there which are labeled there. So I'll just connect up these one by one using a servo tester so we can see what they do. So this is my servo tester, and this is ground on that pin, if I can get it. Let me just show you what I'm doing there. So that's these pins here. I'm plugging them into the bottom row, and ground is on the far left, and then the next one there should be pitch. And if I just turn this servo tester on, now you can see, oops, doesn't like that, does it? So this servo tester is a bit of a cheap one. It has a bit of a problem that at each end it seems to give you strange values. But you should be able to see that it's moving the gimbal according to what I'm doing on the servo tester dial. Doesn't like to go too far in that direction. So you can limit how far the angle is allowed to go in the configuration program, but I haven't done that yet. And in the other direction, I think we can actually go all the way down. So that's about 90 degrees downward there. And we can actually go a tiny bit further until this servo tester starts going weird. So alright, so about there is the center, and we'll just try and center it for when I plug in the next axis. So the next one along should be roll. And now we should be controlling roll. Yep, that looks good. And once again, there's a limit there, I think. Not sure what's going on there. I thought it would go a bit further in that direction. Anyway, and when we turn it this way, we get the roll that way, so we can control this manually if we want to. By the way, when you unplug these pins, it just goes back to the default position. So if I unplug that there, it'll return to the center. Alright then, and next we have yaw, which as we can see was not centered. So if I put this roughly in the middle, we can see that the yaw is controllable, and it seems to be going 90 degrees to each side at the full extent of the signal range. Yeah, but like I say, this servo tester is a bit dodgy. It's not the greatest. What else can we do? Alright, so the last of these pins is labeled in Chinese on here, but from my knowledge of Japanese, I can figure out that that means lock, and that means head something. So I'm assuming head following the position of the mainframe. So let me just put that one on. And what are we doing at the moment? Okay, so this is head following. This is what we've been doing all along. And if I move the servo, I think it's up. It moved a little bit there, so I think we're in a different mode. And now if I move the frame, the yaw direction is locked, so it's not going anywhere. This can be a handy way to center the yaw, because what happens when you leave that mode, so if I put the servo dial down to the lower part again, of course this pin you'd normally have on a switch on your transmitter, but you can get the same effect by using a dial. It's just the upper half of the dial will be one switch position and the lower half will be the other. So now we should see that we're in the follow mode again, but the position for the follow has been offset by this angle. So we can use that. Say if we started the gimbal up and it started up like this, we don't really want that. We could flip it into that mode and then, oops, let's see, flip it into that mode so that it's locked, and then we could position our gimbal so that it's, position the frame and everything so that it's locked heading straight forwards, and then put it back into the follow mode so that now when it's when it follows, it points ahead instead of to the side. So that could be one use for that, I suppose. This is a good point to note the deadband, which I'll have a look at in the settings app a little bit later. But you'll notice that when I move the yaw here, nothing really happens until we get to a certain point. So if I go too far in this direction, then the camera will start to follow. But within this range here, it doesn't do anything, because you haven't gone far enough away from that position to require a correction. So this is called the deadband, and we can set up how many degrees that is in the configuration app. So no movement until I go, I think it's 4 degrees is the default for yaw. But you can see it doesn't come all the way to the center. It's sort of lagging behind a little bit because of that deadband. Anyway, we'll have a look at that in the configuration app soon. So that's what you can do with these radio control pins here without changing any of the configuration GUI, using the configuration GUI to change anything else. And I think that's a pretty sensible way to have it for defaults. Now, of course, you wouldn't be using one of these things in flight. You would be using a transmitter like that. If you have a transmitter and receiver with a large number of channels, you could just use maybe some dials on your transmitter box to do what we were just doing there. I only have a 6-channel transmitter, is the largest I have, well, I guess I could use the NRF24 module to fix up a tricky way to do this, but what I'm going to do here is plug this in, and we'll just see what we can do using a full transmitter and receiver, so like a separate set. And this would be a pretty easy way to set up a dual operator system, so one person could be flying the quadcopter and the other guy could be flying or pointing the camera. So let me just get all that stuff plugged in and I'll show you how that works, because it's really easy. Okay, that's everything plugged in. It looks a bit messy, but there's not really much to it. I just have the power coming in to power the receiver there, and over here we have 3 wires. Ground is going to the ground on the gimbal controller, and then I have pitch and roll pins going to the pitch and roll pins on the gimbal over there. So the result of that is that when I move the sticks on my transmitter, I can control the position of the camera. Now it's a little bit slow, but again you can change that in the configuration settings. So see how slow that is. And so 90 degrees each way for the yaw being matched up with the roll stick, and if I let this go it will return to the middle. So the mode we're using at the moment is called absolute for these positions. So that means that when a stick is in the middle, camera's in the middle, and any offset from center corresponds to an offset from the middle for the camera. And same goes for pitch. I noticed I couldn't really go up too far with this because we get stuck on the can you see that there? This little wire here, when we go too far that way, it gets pulled tight, and right about the point where it gets pulled tight it starts shuddering. So I'm thinking that that is the cause of that. And for going down, I can push it all the way in that direction with no shuddering. So that's probably a little bit more important than being able to look upwards, I would think, if you are flying up in the sky. So yeah, a little bit slow. And you can see it's just, you can't make any quick movements with the default settings. But it is nice to know that you can have a dual operator set up pretty quickly just by adding this gimbal and second receiver onto your quadcopter, as long as you have, of course, a second transmitter to do the transmitting with. Alright, what else was I going to say here? Oh yeah, I haven't set up a switch to change the modes, but you could easily add a fourth wire rather, from your auxiliary channel, whatever that switch is on, to switch between the modes very easily. Alright, now let's have a look at a few simple settings that you can change to affect the stuff that we just looked at in the configuration app. So if I connect here, we should have everything good. Now one thing that kind of caught me out, when you change settings here, clicking right will apply the settings so you can see what they're going to do, but it won't change anything permanently. So if you reset the board or if you power it down and power it up again, you'll lose those settings. So you need to either select Store to EEPROM from here, or you can also alternatively click this checkbox so that the button becomes Write and Store, and then click this button. Notice if I click this now, it will also clear that checkbox. So you've got to make sure to check that checkbox every time you want to do that, if you do it that way. Alright, so I didn't really change anything much on any of the tabs except for this one here, Setup. I changed IMU configuration to full. So this is off by default, which is, like I was saying in my last video, it's a bit of a shame that at least that wasn't set to full by default when they set up, when they loaded the firmware onto this particular board, because it does have 2 IMUs. So I changed that to full, and then over here in the pan settings tab, this is all the default values at the moment, but let's have a little comparison of what happens with I'll just put this here, hopefully you can still see it. Let's get that out of the way. And put this a bit there. Okay. So the mode that we're in is hold, hold, pan. Now this is pitch, roll, yaw. So pitch and roll will be held, and yaw will be panned. So this is the same thing we've had all the time. Roll is locked, pitch is locked, yaw is following, panned. And we can try some other modes. We have hold, 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 which is what we just saw when we changed the mode with our switch or with our servo tester. So it's locked in every axis. And let's put that back to the middle before I change this. And then we have pan, 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 which will make every axis follow the frame. Kind of slowly though, isn't it? But you can see that the pitch and the roll, the roll is now following the frame, and of course yaw was already following the frame. So this will let you point the camera in any direction at all and have it moving smoothly. Not quite any direction at all, because as we'll see in my video later, if you go past 90 degrees you get some shaking still. What else have we got? Pan, hold, hold. Oh, I haven't actually tried this one. What is this? So this roll will be... Oh, sorry, pitch will be held. No? Pan, hold, hold. What is it doing? It's holding the yaw and the roll. Oh, and it's panning the pitch. That doesn't seem very useful, does it? I guess if you had something that was in front of you and you wanted to look up and down it a lot, you could use that, but otherwise it doesn't seem very handy. And then, wasn't there one other mode? Oh, okay. Now I'm using this on Linux through the Wine emulator, and it seems to pack a sad every now and then, and it just stops responding. Now I haven't used this on Windows, so presumably the Windows version is better, but I'm having a bit of trouble here, so let me just kill this and restart it, unfortunately. Alright, here we are again, sorry about that. So there was one more mode that I had not tried, which was pan, hold, pan. Alright, this is the one that I did the last part of this video using. So this will do, see, pitch will be following the frame, yaw is following the frame, and roll is locked. So it's just the roll that's locked there. This seems like the most sensible mode if you're going to be using this as a handheld filming gimbal. And for quadcopter type use, the one that it had at the beginning. Is this thing frozen again? Damn it. Take 3. Here we go. So that's the pan mode settings, and there are 2 of them here. So there's setting number 1 and setting default, which is what's going to happen when you don't have any radio control inputs controlling it. So that's what I use when I'm out walking around, because I don't have a radio control plugged in. And then this one here presumably is what would happen when you're when the servo was going into the high position. This is what we saw here. And I'm guessing that if you turn this one to some setting other than off, these 2 here, maybe you can use a 3-position switch or a 4-position switch to do other types of mode switching for those. And the field at the top there just defines which pin of the inputs is going to be used to make that switch happen. Okay, so let's now look at some of the speed changes that we can do. So the speeds are 2, 2, and 4 roughly. So what that means is, let's make this pan, pan, pan. So now we're going to be following. Now just take a look at the speeds that this happens with. Not particularly fast, is it? So if we just bump these up to say 8 there, oops, a bit too fast. So that's sort of multiplied the speeds by about 4. Now we can see that the gimbal is jumping around much quicker to get to the target position. And if I power up this thing again, oh, it's already on. I just need to plug this one in. I plug in my receiver again. We should have a little bit more of a responsive control. Oh, not really. No, it's still not. Maybe the RC inputs can do this. No, it doesn't look like there's any speeds. Oh, here we go. Sorry, I didn't really look into this too much before I started the video, obviously. But here we go. RC pitch speed limit, 40 degrees per second. Let's bump this up and see what happens. 80 degrees per second. Right. Maybe that's it. Okay, there we go, that's faster, isn't it? So, yeah, like I said in my other video, there are a lot of settings here. And there's so many tabs and fields and stuff in this configuration thing that I don't really think I'm going to be able to look at all of them. But, well, that's one that works at least. The yaw speed for radio control can be changed there. Might just put that back to what it was, 40. And another thing I wanted to look at here was the modes for these RC controls. So as I said before, at the moment we are running in the absolute mode, which means that the position of the stick corresponds to the position of the camera. And we should also have a relative mode. So let me just do that for yaw to start with. Relative means that the position of the stick corresponds to presumably a rate of movement. So it's like rate mode when you're flying your quadcopter. Alright, and we can see it moving slowly because my stick is obviously not trimmed. That's a bit unfortunate. And I don't have any trims on this because it's my crappy cheap ass transmitter. But now we can see that the position of the stick is corresponding to the speed of movement. So if I let it go there, if I pull it all the way over to that direction and then let it go, it doesn't go anywhere because the stick position is not related to the position, it's related to the speed. So the speed is 0. So that's a really nice feature, I think. And it makes it a lot easier to control because if I put this back to, oh, relative turnaround, what's that? Don't know. If I put it back to absolute, we'll find that when you're controlling it, it's kind of hard to just keep it in one position. So you'd have to have a really steady hand to keep the camera pointed directly at what you're trying to point it at without sort of wavering a little bit. So I think if I had my trims set up correctly, this relative mode would be a much easier way to control it. About that deadband that I was talking about earlier, we can see that on the pan tab as well. We have deadband settings for pitch, roll and yaw. I think the easiest one for me to demonstrate is the yaw. So that's the default of 4 degrees. So I think that means we have a range of 4 degrees to move within which to move it before it starts to try and correct if we go outside that 4 degree band. So let me just put this, let's put it all the way up to the maximum of 10 degrees for starters, and we'll see that we have a bit more of a range to move it before it starts to follow. Not sure if this is this a total of 10 degrees or a total of 20 degrees, being 10 each side? I don't know, what do you think? So it's from there to there, nothing's moving yet. and there it starts to follow us. How many degrees do you think that is? Anyway, we can also set that down to nothing, and that means it will always try to keep itself pointing exactly forwards. So if you move it slowly, it almost looks like it's just sticking with the frame completely, but if we go fast we'll see that it's not. It's panning like it was before, but it's trying to keep exactly pointed forwards as much as possible the whole time. So that's a 0 deadband, and generally I don't think you'd want a 0 deadband, especially if you're holding it by hand, because your hands are going to be sort of always having a little bit of shake like that. For a quadcopter, even, yeah, you do get a little bit of shake in the yaw, don't you? Not much, but yeah, you still want to have some deadband. Because the great thing about the deadband is you might notice in the latter part of this video, sometimes when I'm holding it still enough, it just looks like a still photo because the gimbal is so good. Okay, I might just have a go at changing the gimbal orientation, since I noticed in this gimbal configuration tab there's a button called Configure Gimbal Tool, and when I clicked on that, well, it's already done, you can see here, but the motors were disabled. So this is what we get when we click on that button, and we can see that Ollie has done a lot of work here, because there's a nice little configuration GUI to show you how to set this up. Now I haven't done this, so bear with me if I look a bit stupid while I'm doing it, but it says the motors were just disabled. Yes, I noticed that. And we can click a few of these things up here for what we want to set up. Now I don't want to change anything apart from, I think it would be these first two IMU orientations. Motor directions seem fine, everything seems fine. Enable motors and restart gimbal, store an EEPROM, no. So I'll just have those three checkboxes on and continue. Okay, in this step the orientation parameters for the IMUs will be determined. Please level the camera roughly by hand within 15 degrees and click continue to carry on. Okay. Alright, so what I'm trying to do here is this way, isn't it? So I want to set this up to be flowing on my quadcopter on the top, because I'm stupid and I want to smash the gimbal with the propellers. No. That's not... Oh yeah, that'll do, okay. And in post-process we can flip the video, right? Alright, so let's continue like that. Please tilt both the camera and gimbal down by something 45 degrees without rolling. Hold them in this position until the IMU orientations got detected. You have 2 minutes to do that. Okay, I think what I might have to do here is put the back of that onto something like that and hold this in that direction like that. Hopefully that will be enough of an angle. Okay, the next step will be to tune the PID parameters. Wait a minute, I didn't want to do that. The determined parameters were written to the board but not yet stored. Okay, that's fine. In order to enable the motors and restart the gimbal, click the respective finish options to the right. Have fun. Okay. Just take that out. See what's going to happen when I click OK. Ooh, is that what we want? Not really. Oh shit! It's calibrating the gyro. Sorry about that. Wasn't supposed to touch it there, I think. All right, that looks good. Does it look good? Not really. Oh no. given up. Alright, I guess we didn't do that right. Let's try it again. Configure gimbal. No. Actually, you know, since I'm doing this and people are watching, maybe it might be informative to do the whole list except for store and EEPROM, just in case I screw something up. Let's try this again then. Continue. Level the camera roughly like that. Like this. So I'm leveling it. Go. Alright, pitch, tilt both the camera and gimbal down by CA. What does CA stand for? I'll just do this, see if I can do this with one hand this time. Alright, that's a bit more of an angle there now. Okay, set the number of poles for each motor. Oh shit, what was that? So I'm just looking at the defaults here to copy in what was already there. There are 14 each. So I'm just going to put continue there. Motor direction parameters will be configured to auto. Yep, that'll do. Suits me. The gimbal needs to be restarted and be in normal state for the next steps to work. This may fail when the PID parameters are grossly wrong. The motors will be enabled and the gimbal restarted. A battery needs to be connected. Alright, let's do it. Go. State is settle. State is calibrate. State is level. Oh, that looks good. Stop. Oh, there we go. That looks really good. I think. There we go. Alright, so we're done. And hopefully... okay. It's kind of working, but I can feel a little bit of yeah, it feels like the P settings may be a bit high in the PIDs. So I think what just happened there was the PIDs got messed with, perhaps. So maybe I didn't want to change all of those that time. Or it could be that these pan things are now too high. So let's put these back to the defaults. What were they? 2, 2, and 3? Whatever. I think they were 3, 3, and 4 maybe. Yeah, that's what it was. So it looks like pan, pan, pan. Okay, hold on. Let me just put this back to hold, hold, pan, because that's the best way we can get an idea of when it's working nicely. That's it. Lovely. Well, that wasn't very difficult, was it? So I guess the first time I did that calibration thing, I wasn't holding it at enough of an angle downwards for it to detect which way it was supposed to be doing it. So just make sure you get it on a decent 45-degree angle like that when you do that calibration, or that wizard step. I guess that's the moral of the story. So now I can put this on top of my my car, or the dashboard in my car, and do some driving video and see how that works. Oh, let me just see if the pitch and everything is working on this properly still. Okay, to the Yep. Yep, that's great. Easy, huh? So unfortunately the camera is upside down, but that just means that if you're gonna make a video for YouTube, you're gonna have to flip the video somehow. Actually, does the Xiaomi U do that in the settings? I can't remember. I know the RunCam does, but can't remember if that one does. Anyway, this is a way too long video already, so I'll just play the rest of that stuff that I got when I walked around the park. And thanks for watching. See you later. Okay, this time I'll be able to point the camera downwards and show you things that are down and up as well. Not that there's anything amazingly interesting up there, but just as a demonstration of the pitch following. That's how it works. So I've left all the deadband settings and everything the same. So this is just the one single setting that's different from the defaults, the follow mode. Oh, and on the Xiaomi Yi I've turned on the barrel distortion correction mode. So that's the other thing that's a little bit different from last time. Alright, so now that we're using, oh, and we're using two IMUs of course, so I have actually changed two settings in the gimbal controller. So now we should be able to tip it up to about 90 degrees, which is about, yeah, it's 90 degrees there. And we have none of that nasty shuddering that we got before. Well, actually, okay, we can't really go past 90 degrees by the looks of it. It started to shudder at just a little bit over 90 degrees. Yeah. And I guess going downwards is the same. It's about 90 degrees there. Now we're past 90 degrees. Oh wow. Actually, oh, how about that? Wow. That was about 15 degrees past the 90 degree mark where it started to shudder. And another important thing is you can see that even after it shudders, the yaw has recovered to the original position, because the controller knows how far the top part has moved. So it knows how far to return the bottom part to get back to where it should be. Should we do that spin test here? Ready? So, I don't think it's going to have any problem with that at all. Well, it's not very sunny here, is it? The sun is actually still quite high in the sky, even though it's just gone 7 PM here in February. Let's see if we can find a little bit more of a sunny spot to look at. Oops. Look at that. That's not the kind of spot we're looking for, is it? Oh, poopers. Oh jeez, there's poos everywhere. You better watch out. Now I can point this uphill as I'm walking to give you a better view of what a human would normally be looking at when they're walking uphill. So if you're walking uphill, you're not going to be looking level like that, are you? You're going to be looking up there. Much more natural feeling, I think.